when I look outside and I observe any animals that are even in my neighborhood, they don't have to worry about health. They don't have to worry about what they should eat, how much they should eat, when they should eat. Everything's baked in. We've destroyed all of that. We have no concept of what a natural human environment is. And I think that's kind of the source of all of our problems.
Welcome back to the Fitt Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Veneri. Today I'm joined by Anthony Gustin, co-founder of Lineage Provisions. In this episode, we discuss nutrient-dense, regenerative farming and the crisis facing our food system. Anthony shares how his journey from clinician to founder to farmer inspired the company. Plus, we talk about bootstrapping CPG brands, reshaping consumer education, and solving problems instead of selling products. Let's get into it. This episode of the Fitt Insider Podcast is brought to you by EGYM. EGYM makes some of the most innovative strength training machines on the market, but that's only one part of their integrated ecosystem. With connected fitness equipment, AI-powered gym software, and a comprehensive corporate wellness offering, it's forging the future of preventative health. Partnering with companies worldwide, EGYM's WellPass program improves employee health by expanding access to premier fitness and health facilities. Upgrading gym floors, EGYM equips every operator with smart equipment and AI tools to create hyper-personalized training plans for every exerciser. Putting it all together, they're transforming healthcare through exercise. Experience the power of EGYM's ecosystem at egym.com. Hey, Anthony, welcome to Fitt Insider. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man, you got a lot going on. And so maybe just to kick things off, how do you describe what you do and maybe tell us a little bit about your background?
My wife always laughs at me whenever we're together and I try to answer this question. I still say farmer, or what I recently did. I was just doing that because that's the thing that I never really intended to go in this space to be a CEO, founder, entrepreneur. It's just kind of stumbled my way to this path. So I am kind of stuck trying to figure out, and I don't even know what role I serve anymore. I like to build stuff. I was thinking about this the other day of do I come up with some interesting slogan and try to make it interesting for tech people? I help do sales for bioreactors that improve soil quality, which is basically just thinking through how to communicate about supporting regenerative agriculture and meat products. But yeah, two different things I'm working on right now. One's Equip Foods, is a company that I've had for almost 10 years. And then Lineage Provisions has been my newest focus, but it's been a crazy journey from the start of that 10 years ago to now. And so there's been a lot of different changes. And I think I've changed my career 4 times in the last 7 years.
You mentioned Lineage. What is that? How did you come to this idea? I know I got a care package in the mail of some awesome products that I've been hammering the kind of, it doesn't even feel right to call it beef jerky because it's not, it's just whole meat. But yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think my interest level always from when I was younger was, I had a lot of health issues when I was younger. It was why are people so sick and how do you help them become healthier? And the first way I figured out how to do that was to be a clinician. So I was in San Francisco at some sports med clinics for a while, transitioned to more functional medicine work. And then through that, originally launched Equip, which is a real food supplement brand, Perfect Keto, because that was a therapeutic thing that I was using a lot with people. But after I built and left my clinics, built and sold Perfect Keto, bought a farm because I just kept getting back to tracing to our food system, and then from our food system to the soil and how our food is actually made. And literally just got my hands dirty, got a farm, started doing a bunch of stuff, figuring out what are the problems here and how can I help accelerate the transition to more regenerative agriculture. So I don't know how much your audience is familiar with the types of how we grow food, but I think it's the number one problem that I care to work out on in the world of the way we're treating the ecosystem that we depend on for survival is completely backwards. So the thing we need every day to survive, food, we are doing it in such an extractive way that is making it harder and harder to make the food. There's a way to do agriculture, which effectively must involve animals, which is using grazing animals and moving them around in a species appropriate way. How, we used to have 100+ million large ruminant animals cruising through, and that led to very fertile soils, healthy ecosystems, removed all of them, and then put cattle on the land. And then doing that in a way of continuous grazing is actually really bad. It leads to desertification. This soil that we depend on contains all the nutrients that literally all life comes from. So all life comes from soil effectively, especially all the stuff that we need as humans. So the way we're doing food production now is destroying that thing we depend on. And without that, there's a book called Dirt by David Montgomery that shows like every civilization collapse is basically tied to us destroying and denuding our soil. So whenever we can't eat food anymore, surprise, surprise, civilization goes away. And I think that we're actually kind of at a brink of that currently. We have been able to cover that up with mechanisms and technology like artificial fertilizers, things like that. But getting into like, why are people so sick? Why are we so disconnected? What's going on here? Like, we need to fix the problem of soil health. And to do that, we need ruminant animals on the land in a species appropriate behavior. And that can actually sequester carbon, build up soil, and restore nutrient density in food quality. Right now, if you look at, an orange is not an orange like it was 100 years ago. We've lost 90+% of all nutrients in all the food the way we're doing farming. It's catastrophic. We're so focused on things, and even like if it fits your macros bros, like we're losing out. Like all of our food databases, if you put in a food and MyFitnessPal or Chronometer or any of these tracker apps, it'll say like you're getting X amount of vitamin C from an orange, for example. That was done in like the 40s. A lot of our nutrient standards were done in the 40s. Our nutrition in our soil has declined so much, so rapidly, that we are not getting what we need out of our food. And the only way to do that, and the best way to do that, is by using ruminant animals. And it also helps people get the most nutrient dense food for humans, which are animal products. We can get into like why that is. So I got into farming. Okay, what are the problems that farmers have? What are regenerative farmers like? What are they struggling with? And this is like I just like to solve problems and figure out how can I have leverage based upon what is my past experience, where are my skills at. And one of the biggest things is when a regenerative farmer takes cattle and does grazing and all this type of stuff, they can sell chops or like steaks and ground meat and things like that. But then they're left over with a bunch of other things that are really hard to sell. And then you have the other end of the spectrum of humans need convenient, easy to access, high nutrient dense food. So the question is like, can I pair the things that are not able to be sold for regenerative farmers that are hurting them? Because if they have freezers stocked full of things like fat and trim and roasts and all this type of stuff, then they are not able to increase their herd size. They're not able to sell through. They're not able to make enough money. And then you have consumers that are effectively being poisoned by anything that's in a package currently. And, the Make America Healthy Again brigade is doing a good job trying to get all the weird poisoning out of things like Lucky Charms and whatever. But it's still like the red dye coming out of Lucky Charms is not going to solve our health crisis. We need nutrient dense food, and we need that food to be coming from food sources and food supply chains that are regenerating the land and making them actually sustainable in the long term. And so like the thought process was, can I create something that solves both of those needs where humans get delicious, healthy, nutrient dense food, and we effectively support the regenerative supply chain that we literally must work on and must expand if we have any hope around sustaining our civilization as humans. And like, I think that sounds like pretty aggressive, but that was kind of the impetus of like why I needed to start this brand. And I didn't want to, honestly, like I didn't want to get back into CPG stuff after the perfect keto thing, but found myself here again.
This conversation will be well timed. Folks will either just have or will soon after listen to a conversation with Robbie from the CEO of Force of Nature Meats. And as we talk about a lot of similar concepts and the idea that the thing that sustains us is that in his view is like all people are worried about is price, the lowest possible price. If they get the meat at what they deem affordable and what it has always been, then that's basically all that they're focused on. Certain generations, and that's starting to shift now. And this conversation that you're talking about is certainly moving more into the mainstream. But when you talk about what Lineage does provide, like what does the product assortment look like now? What do you hope it grows into? How do you see it kind of solving this problem that you're talking about?
I mean, the focus that you said around price is such an important one. I think that like we're just optimizing so much of our food system based upon things like price and yield. I was actually just literally texting with my Perfect Keto co-founder, Justin Mares, who also co-founded Kettle and Fire and True Med. I don't know if you guys have had him on. about this like regenerative financing thing and a fund of like helping regenerative farms get over. And we're just showing through like, this is going to be really challenging because as a society, we value yield over nutrition and over sustainability. And I don't know how we necessarily change that. I think there's like some ideas we have on that, but it's going to be a tough battle to go against like the $5 Costco chicken and like what that like optimizing for the biggest chicken for $5, how much that screws up people's health, the ecosystem we depend on, supply chains, farmers. It's devastating, honestly. And then we get into that, but to go back to your original question, just around product assortment, we launched the first product was our meat sticks, which have regenerative, 100% grass fed, regenerative beef, liver, heart, sea salt, vinegar, and that's it. And then we use an air drying technique that takes about 5 days. Whereas every other meat stick that you're going to get on the market is adding in curing agents. So they cure and cook them. So, not to name any names here, but like there's many other meat sticks on the market that they'll process their product and it'll be done in like 6 to 12 hours. You can control, like you can make a very consistent product that way. To make a product air dried that has organs in it to taste good consistently, man, it took like 2 years to figure out how to do that. And so that was the first product. The reason why for that one is, again, there's all this trim that comes off the cattle. And this is one of the biggest problem with farmers that go, okay, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? I believe it to be some of the most nutrient dense food possible because it's not just muscle meat. So when you get muscle meat, there's a lot of great nutrients in there, but you're only getting a certain amount of the animal. And we're not just muscle. We have connective tissue, we have joints, we have skin, we have gut, we have all this other stuff. And so when we're using some of the trim pieces, you're getting some of the connective tissue beyond just the meat. And then you're getting the organs, which again is another area that people are not getting enough of. So eating nose to tail is like really crucial. Again, where we have all of these things in ourselves. If we need to build ourselves up, we need to eat this. And like the nutrient density in organs is by far unequivocally the most nutrient dense food per gram that you can get of any food on the planet. And so it's really important for us to include everything from the animal while also, unlocking this part of the supply chain for the farmers, or like, I don't know what to do with all this trim. And Force of Nature is doing this with ground. So, I mean, that was one of their big things from the beginning was how do we help farmers move more of this stuff that is generally a commodity thing that's really hard for them to move, where they can sell steaks and all this type of stuff all day long. But for them to move ground hard, for them to move trim, which is like even more of like I don't want to say like waste product or byproduct, but it's something that most consumers don't get a bunch of weird chopped up stuff that's left off the line. And you're not going to take trim and cook it up as like a steak or put it into a roast or whatever. It's very hard for consumers to consume any of that stuff. Meanwhile, it's the most nutrient dense stuff possible. And so opted for air drying, which has been a nightmare, but I think a problem worth solving because it's at a very low heat. And this is how we've preserved meat for tens of thousands of years. And it preserves a lot of the critical enzymes and coenzymes in the actual meat that help you. So it's just like the same thing with like raw milk, for example. Why raw milk is good is because you have a lot of the things inherent in the product that helps you digest it and nutrients in there. When you cook it off, and I'm not saying like cooking isn't necessarily bad, but it just changes the food dramatically. And so pasteurization, homogenization of milk does this. Curing and cooking meat in a meat stick also just, I never felt really good eating products like that. Even though like, even if they're grass fed or whatever, we can get some nuance around, is grass fed really grass fed in most of the ways? It's not, spoiler alert, but it was very important that like we did this as like, when I make products also, like it's kind of done in a selfish way. Like, how do I just make the absolute best thing that I want to exist? And so just went out to do that. And that was the first product. And that was, we launched last February and I've since launched a bunch of extra products, but it's been a hell of a journey, but that was sort of the thing that kicked it off.
A lot of the things that you're saying in terms of, grass fed isn't grass fed, and, are ultimately like, are the things that we think healthy actually healthy, and red meat is demonized and you're not supposed to be eating this, and these things are okay and are maybe pushed on us, like whether it's vetting ideas or building this company or companies in the past, like how do you cut through that noise of like, this isn't real, this is real, like, and ultimately convey that to consumers and create a product that like not only you feel confident selling them that it's quality and good for them, but like it just doesn't get caught up in all this misinformation is the obviously the buzzword, but just like what is or isn't healthy or right, or the different kind of taglines that get put on things.
The health industry as it is today is very corrupt, I would say. It is turned into health consumerism. And I mean, I was just at Expo West a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you've gone to that event
Yeah.
ever. It's very intense. And there's this bunch of people that are trying to sell people stuff so that they can make money selling to a strategic buyer eventually because they see Siete sold for $1.2 billion. So they think that they want to do that. And then you get like a reductionist mindset in the health trackers and people obsessed with data. And like you kind of forget the truth of our natural human environment and what we've done for all of human history. And that was prized animal products as nutrition for humans. And so again, like this is when you're looking at just at human health. And then you look at ecosystem health. And you look at taking large ruminants off of the land has been catastrophic from deforestation to desertification. It is absolutely decimating the health of our planet and the health of our ecosystems. And so when I look to like what's true, I try to observe nature. I don't try to think through like what is the most recent trend or fad. I think at the end of the day, truth wins. And this kind of, I don't know, more of a esoteric just belief. Like it's like I think like goodness and truth wins. And I think you see that when you look at the Beyond Meat stock price. You look at some of these people like trying to sell people a bunch of processed trash, claiming it's healthy for them. It may work for a short period of time. It may work if you raise hundreds of millions of dollars and spend it all on marketing for a short period of time. But people just like they eat it. They know better. Like they don't feel good. It doesn't taste good. It's extractive. We've eaten meat our entire human history. Like, why would it now cause issues? Animals have been on the land for many tens of millions of years, and then we screwed that up. Why do we think that's an issue? It's just like mind-boggling to me how removed people are from nature and just getting back on like doing farming myself, getting back into nature. It's pretty obvious where the truth lies there. And this is just like, I'm doing this because of that reason. Like I'm not like I would do very different thing and I'd do a very different business in a very different way if my objective was to be making money right now. And like to be maximizing that as an outcome. And I think unfortunately the health space, because so many people are unhealthy, it's attracting a lot of parasitic capitalistic people who just want to sell people stuff they don't need. And I think like that's getting really confusing because then people are trying to make good health choices, but then are just being sold like, oh, this is the solution to all your problems. Look to nature as my ask to people and try it out and see how you feel. And if you don't feel good, then don't do it and like figure out your own path. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. I'm just trying to show like, here's what I found doing my research and here's what I think is the best for me. Try it out. Might work for you.
I get the draw to money and maybe the mental gymnastics that goes on where it's you can convince yourself that you're solving a problem, or maybe you don't even care really if you're getting the financial outcome and the business is growing and all those things are working. But when you think about the number of issues and the significance from the food system to healthcare to obesity and the environment, like how do we kind of talked about it, like how do we create a fund to have regenerative agriculture? And it's like those hundreds of millions of dollars that go into a company like Beyond Meat, it's like, how do we get that into solving some of these actual bigger fundamental problems? And it's almost as if like, yeah, the desire is not there to like think from that first principles, like, hey, what is going on in nature and how do we tackle this and why do we need the soil type way? Like, do you have a sense of like, how do we shift that and how do we build momentum around that to change some of these bigger actual issues?
Yeah. I mean, I think that nature isn't as profitable as man-made things. And that's just the way it is. And this is just where it's very complex. Like, how do you, I mean, this is why I was interested in tackling this problem. Like, can you, and I think it's important to build profitable businesses. And this is another reason why I generally have a preference to bootstrap and self-fund rather than raising money. I don't think there's anything bad inherently in raising money. I just prefer to have a solvent, sustainable ecosystem that I'm operating in, and that you can't hide from if you're solving a problem or not when you're bootstrapping. You need to be solving problems. You need to be providing value. And that's like the ultimate thing of, can you do that? And can you do what a business is supposed to do, which is to make money, to do more things, to solve more problems? And so I think that it needs to be done that way. I think it's really tricky of how to do that for the regenerative agriculture movement. And this is where I tried to figure out, I created a list after I was doing farming of, here's like these 39 different problems that I saw in the regenerative agriculture movement. Like, how can I use my skills, and how can I try to make a system that works as much as I would prefer to live in a very different society? The reality is we live in a capitalist one, and money and capital drive the ship. And this is like what we need to focus. Like, we need to create change using businesses, because if we don't, we're going to get steamrolled. And that's just the way it is. Like, everybody depends on money. So yeah, it's a complicated one, but hopefully we can create a great business here that has a lot of impact. And Force of Nature is doing a hell of a job, and they're doing great. And there's very few companies that truly dive into the supply chain on a level that we do, or they do, or other brands in this space do. And like they're using terms like regenerative or grass-fed or sustainable as greenwashing to sell things. So people, as they get educated on this stuff, they care and they want to support it. And then you get the confusion of, well, can I actually trust any of this type of stuff? So like when we were sourcing for the grass-fed stuff and all the meat and like building our meat supply chain, there was two different types of input we could use. One was grass-fed. That was half of the price that we're currently paying. And the caveat there, and they said they're regenerative and all this type of stuff. The caveat there is none of them would let you go visit the farms. Okay, why is that? And this wasn't just one supplier. This is many of them. And then the ones that are like, yes, come out, like come see what we're doing. I want you to support us. 2 times the cost. There's a lot of reasons for that. And so this doesn't just happen at the brand level. It happens at the supplier level. And most brands that even go out and try to do a good job aren't so obsessive that like they go to every farm, they go to every ingredient supplier, they like figure every, like they trace the supply chain back to the literal soil it comes from. Because it's hard to do that. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of money. And so even when brands are trying to do a good job, a lot of times the downstream suppliers suck and they're lying to people. So how do you sift through all that? Like you just sometimes need to build it yourself. And this is like with the Force of Nature has built an incredible supply chain. Like we've gotten a lot of help from them, and we're trying to do our own version of that. And like we launched a honey product, for example, and went through tons of different examples and have tested for glyphosate, heavy metals, pesticides, herbicides, all this type of stuff for every single batch of all this. And like, there's so many things you have to try to figure out when building a supply chain, especially with a food product, that most brands just rocket past and try to figure out like what claims can they put on their label, what's allowed by the USDA, what's allowed by whatever organizing body. And they're missing the entire point of why they should be doing it in the first place, which is, like you said, to actually solve a problem, to fix the supply chain. Because without that, what the hell do we have at the end of the day? It's a marketing slogan. Who cares? Like, who cares about that? It's just a waste of time.
This episode of the Fitt Insider Podcast is brought to you by EGYM. EGYM makes some of the most innovative strength training machines on the market, but that's only one part of their integrated ecosystem. With connected fitness equipment, AI-powered gym software, and a comprehensive corporate wellness offering, it's forging the future of preventative health. Partnering with companies worldwide, EGYM's WellPass program improves employee health by expanding access to premier fitness and health facilities. Upgrading gym floors, EGYM equips every operator with smart equipment and AI tools to create hyper-personalized training plans for every exerciser. Putting it all together, they're transforming healthcare through exercise. Experience the power of EGYM's ecosystem at egym.com. There's this starting with the passionate, values-driven, mission-aligned founder or founding team that's trying to really bring this thing, obviously we talked about Force Nature, what you're doing, and make it so that truly the claims that are on the label are actually what it is, and they've done the legwork to like actually go and trace the whole supply chain back. Like even with like supplement companies, right, a huge kind of issue in terms of like what's actually in the package on the label. Is it regulated? How do you do that? what other, whether it's from your list of 39 opportunities around regenerative agriculture, or more broadly things that you've kind of identified as, hey, this is a big problem that needs to be solved. Like, what else is top of mind for you?
I just think fundamentally the human environment is broken, and that's our biggest issue in totality. We're so disconnected from nature and from the way we should be living. And that can come as these toxic forever chemicals or air quality or mold toxicity or not getting enough sunlight or sleep or relationships or meaning or purpose or spirituality. There's a lot of things like when I look outside and I observe any animals that are even in my neighborhood, they don't have to worry about health. They don't have to worry about what they should eat, how much they should eat, when they should eat. Everything's baked in. We've destroyed all of that. We have no concept of what a natural human environment is. And I think that's kind of the source of all of our problems. How to solve that? Man, I don't know.
Right.
It's another question. I don't even think I've like solved that for myself entirely, but like I'm approximating it. And I think that at the end of the day, like you're live as a human and you got to pick a problem to solve and you got to charge forward. And for me, it's just like what it comes down to is our disconnection with soil and where life comes from is I think if I were to choose one of these things that's as comprehensive as possible and brings people back to this truth as much as they can be, like I think that that's it for me. And so that's what we're committed to doing. And like I said, it's great to get the red dye, the Cheerios, and the whatever the Fruit Loops. But is that really going to shift anything? I don't know. I'm skeptical. It's not really restoring the fundamental issue, which is that people are buying those things in the first place. And why are they doing that? And like it's very complex. I don't have a grand unifying theory on how we save the world, but I think that if we don't look at the soil, it's guaranteed that like things will not go well.
When you look at something like, and you mentioned Justin and TrueMed, I've had Callie on the podcast, and so we're investors in TrueMed and know those guys quite well. When you look at something like Maha, it's, to me, it should be, it's not a political issue. It's, we obviously want to do the things that enhance health and well-being for the most amount of people, and hopefully as easily as possible, right? Like you were saying, the fact that basically people have to spend a whole heck of a lot of effort and time and money potentially to achieve those goals is backwards, to put it mildly. Getting the red dye out of foods, is that, from your view, like not even going remotely far enough? Is that kind of picking and choosing? Is that losing the plot in terms of like how we make wholesale change to tackle some of the bigger issues?
Not to make it a political discussion, really, but I think that the changes needed to be made. We're not in HHS, that we're in the USDA. If we're looking from top down, what could be done from like a Maha perspective, I think that people definitely feel disenfranchised. And I think that there's, talk about the complexity of like, how do you even unwind the problem we're at? And so I think that it's easy to reduce things to things like get the red dye out. Like, what can we do to like change some things at this level? So there's a top-down approach via the government and via this, kind of Maha movement, but people aren't asking the question. They're not asking it enough times. Why do we have this problem? Why do we have this problem? And I think if you ask enough times and keep pulling that thread, again, you get back to less the government should be controlling and telling farmers how to farm and do all this stuff. And like humans should be like going bottom up. We're not going to fix the food system, or we're not going to fix regenerative farming by some policy that's being put up by any administration. We're going to fix it by people caring about the issue and supporting as many local farms, brands that are doing good work, and voting with their dollar. And that's how we're going to create change. And we also need the other side of it. So there's a whole contingent of people who have the awareness, who have the finances to do that. And that's kind of like more what I'm working on. However, there's also the single mom of two who has 3 jobs in the inner city who doesn't know any difference, who's actively getting poisoned. And she needs her food system to be less toxic for her and her kids to survive. And so both things need to be done. It's just like, what problems that does the individual want to care about? And like, again, that for me, it's overwhelming, the decision of needing to focus on farms that can literally sustain themselves, like not this buzzword of sustainability, but just like from a sheer technical definition of like, can this plot of land continue to produce food and not be desertified and turn into dirt? Yes or no? Like it's like the Fruit Loops color doesn't matter if we can't make food that goes into Fruit Loops.
Talking to folks like yourself and like Robbie from Force of Nature and other individuals who are kind of like on the front lines, like doing that work of rebuilding a food system from scratch, like it's incredibly complicated and overwhelming. And you're going against entrenched $1 billion interests and political and like all these things that ladder up to making it feel almost impossible to have the change at the scale that it will actually solve the types of problems that we're talking about, but incredibly necessary. And back to this conversation around problems versus profits and playing off of the wellness industrial complex and selling people things that they think that they need or want. It's there's almost this other issue of like, how do you get people, founders, investors to focus on the types of things that we're talking about as well? Maybe that's not the right way to think about it, but it's another void that we typically see. Like, we get pitched, and I'm sure you do as well, all types of opportunities, investments, and ideas. And it's like you see the same 10 things just over, like right now, it's like the number of AI calorie tracking apps that like, it's just like, how many could there possibly be? And so how do we shift like the collective focus to like solving these types of problems or even having these types of discussions, frankly?
There's effectively like three main problems we think about it at Lineage. One is the supply chain farmer support. Second is providing the healthiest food in the planet, basically, that is tested, transparent, ultra clean, ultra nutrient dense. And the third is education. And I think a lot about education and people's behaviors as something like I learned this a lot in my clinic of people need to inherently be ready to make a change in their life. And it's very hard to convince them of that. There are certain times where people will be very open to it and they go through life changes when like they maybe change a relationship, get a health diagnosis, a family member dies, have a child, and then they're really motivated. And our goal with education is not necessarily to change people's minds, but it's just like to when people are going through this sort of awakening, so to speak, of like just be there and help arm them with the most amount of truth as possible. And I would have never anticipated as I got into this stuff, I don't know, like 15 plus years ago at this point, when I was running my clinics. And to see so many people care about this stuff is pretty amazing. And it's like, it makes me concerned having Maha be this political thing, like you were saying. But at the same time, like, you can't really change people's minds. People have to like be ready. And then you just help them along the way. And I hope that when Force of Nature grows, when we grow and like do it in a profitable way, and the goal isn't to sell the business, but let's say we do transact or just have a very profitable business that's scaled really large, that we provide an example for people who are in the space who are just trying to make money of like, oh, no, like you can do the right thing and also have a positive financial outcome. And the more positive financial outcomes you have in a space, the more smart people you're going to have moving there. Again, like wish it weren't that way, but it is that way. It's the biggest incentive that we have. And I wrote a post that a lot of people were really pissed about when I said that Siete selling to Pepsi was great because it shows that big food is noticing the value in better, like truly better for you type of products. And hopefully that will attract in more talented people who like actually care about doing the right thing instead of just greenwashing some bullshit. Patagonia is a great example of a business that has scaled really large, that has like done really cool things. And like, he has to use it as an example. It's inspired a lot of stuff that we've done. I'm like, do the best you can. Always try to improve. And you can do this in a different way. It doesn't have to be like every other business. You don't have to cut corners. And hopefully like we can provide an example for other, investors, founders, consumers are like, this can be done. Like you can have products. And we don't, for example, at the current rate, like we can't be sold at every single gas station in America, but that would be a dream of mine. And we'll get there eventually and like figure out how to bring the cost down. But like, we're not there yet. But because we can't, Like there's many people who are like, oh, let's not do that business because we can't have massive scale immediately. And we can't price to Jack Links at the corner store. So it's not a scalable business. I say bullshit to that. Like work on the actual hard problem, which is how do you get the price of this down to mass market over the next 5 to 10 years? I think it's achievable for sure. Like, why wouldn't you want to work on hard problems? It's just way more fun to win that way.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those things like choosing what you're going to work on because you're just going to work as hard and for as long. And so you might as well be working on the thing that's going to have like the highest impact or outcome or you name it.
I'm very pro people getting financial independence because I think like when you're not stressing about money inflow day to day, month to month, you can devote yourself fully to whatever problem you want to work on. So like I'm a big fan of like get to financial independence, whatever that looks like early in your career. But then take time and like really focus on I'm going to be working anyways. I'm going to be doing stuff. Like what do I really care about? And again, like in that vacuum of not having the answer, it typically goes to like money or status. And those are the things that I have never really pursued those for the sake of pursuing them, but I've seen people who have, and they live very vapid lives.
You mentioned early on, I think that, you didn't intend to get back into the kind of CPG space and you like kind of building and starting things, recognizing that we're early in Lineage, but do you have another idea, a couple ideas already loaded? You're already thinking about the next thing. You're finding yourself like pulled towards starting again, or do you even kind of to your own point, like just want to get back to the farm and to nature a little bit?
I have so much joy and passion for building stuff and making things that exist that don't. It's such a fun creative process for me. But at the same time, I just reflect on how much my day is structured right now, which is in front of a computer screen. And I don't like talking about a normal human environment. It's not it. Like the happiest time, like the most fulfilled I was personally was when I was doing farming stuff day to day outside, doing small things that don't scale. But I do care about these problems. I do have like, so it's like a really interesting conflict internally. I don't know where that's going to lead eventually. It's just like this problem just kept coming up and kept coming up. I'm like, okay, I need us like sometimes those things, man, they're just like they ruminate and ruminate and like I can't get this out of my head. I need to just see this through. And this happened in this instance. And then I have another strategy, which is just like keep a document with ideas I have because they're always popping in. So I'm just like I capture this, close that loop, try to get it out of my head. And then when stuff, you know, is like how Lineage was of like, there's so many things in this business currently. We're like, ooh, we need to do this. We need to do this. And like I can't drop it. Those are the things I generally try to gravitate towards spending my time on. The same time, like trying like being focused is like really challenging when you have the mindset of like always having ideas and things. And so it's tough. And like I admittedly, even right now, I'm like probably working on too many things. But then when I simplify, there's always this ebb and flow of simplifying and getting kind of like bored and restless, and then like overcommitting myself and like trying to find that balancing act. And I was going between that spectrum. But I haven't solved that. So if you figure it out, let me know.
No, no. So we said, my brother and I, we run the company together, and 2025 is the year of no new businesses, no new idea. We just need, let's just what's in front of us and focus on executing and try not to start or get pulled in any direction. And it's not going so well. We're already just at the end of Q1 with Lineage. Is there anything that we should keep an eye out for? Any maybe new products dropping anywhere? Anything you're excited about, or worth kind of following along or keeping up with?
Yeah, I think the thing that I'm just like really impressed by that team so far is like how much everybody is committed to providing value with making the products with the like we're doing very little to no sales as in like marketing, traditional marketing. We effectively do none. Our CAC is like very crazy low because we're just doing education primarily on Instagram and then this new newsletter that we launched called the Remembering. And it's something like I enjoy reading every week. I'm like, man, this is awesome. And so I'm thinking we try to explore ideas on that and we're not ever selling people. So I think like that is something that if people want to check out, that's called Remembering. You go sign up. I'm sure it's on our homepage or somewhere. And yeah, just like trying to continue to be as value add as humanly possible with whatever we're doing. I think at the end of the day, like that's what wins. Like if we're providing people value, that's the entire reason for the business existing. And yeah, I don't know. It's a fun part for me. Like thinking like, how do we do this in the most how do we make products that can create a margin where we can hire a team that can act in white space where people have to make money on there. And I was like, for example, when a lot of if it's just education, there's a lot of great people that we work with from like an affiliate basis, but a lot of times people need to take on sponsors and all this other stuff to like pay their bills. And the fact that like we can create a product that's very nutrient dense, that supports farms, that provides us a profit, that hires a team to educate is like that machine to set that up as a business to me is like so amazing and incredible that like we can just make something like that that does all this cool stuff. And so just know like if you support the brand, like this is the type of stuff it's going towards, not the intention of just to like pad the bottom line so me and Paul can get rich. It's like which happens so much in this space now, in like the whole health and wellness space. Like Paul's already health famous. He doesn't need any more status on that front. Like we're doing fine. So like it's not for us to like enrich ourselves and exploit from people. It's like how do we create these amazing machines that provide value immensely? And so support whatever you want, buy whatever products are cool to you. And if you have anything that you want to exist, like reach out to us. Like we're in this fun stage about building this brand where we don't know what the hell we're going to be when we grow up yet. And if there's stuff we're like, oh, I really wish there was X, Y, or Z that existed, literally like send us an email, DM me on Instagram. Like we'll try to figure it out. Cause like there's been a lot of stuff that we've launched to date that has been consumer driven that we're just like building for people that care about their own health and care about the ecosystems that they depend on, all this type of stuff. So it's been a hell of a journey. It's been fun.
Yeah, we'll make sure all those links, website, newsletter, socials are easy to find. Encourage people to check it out. And hopefully this conversation inspires other people to build that machine too, to have the impact and the change. And yes, generate profits that they can turn back around and pour into sustaining the machine and helping people live healthier lives. So thanks for making some time today. Super stoked about the conversation. Appreciate you stopping by.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you got value from the conversation, please consider subscribing and sharing the podcast with a friend or colleague. It's a massive help. And if you want more content like this, including news and insights on the latest industry developments, subscribe to the Fitt Insider newsletter at insider.fitt.co. And one more thing, you can learn more about our recruiting and consulting services at fitt.co. That's FITT.co. I'll see you here next week.